a little cautionary warning about treasure hunting and digging up gold and going gold mining. The people who make the most money off of this, unless you're a large corporation, are people selling you the shovels, the maps, and the dreams. 1863, a Union wagon train loaded up 27 Civil War gold bars, 50 pounds each, for over a ton of gold. They went from Wheeling, West Virginia, passed in a northeasterly way to Ridgeway. And they were last seen in this spot here that isn't going to show up on the maps because of a Google screw-up called St. Mary's. After that, they were supposed to head southeast and end up in Harrisburg. Now, the distance of this is almost 380 miles, which means at 10 miles an hour, bicycling or walking speed, depending on how Google Maps shows it, that should have been, 38 hours or 42 hours or something like that. And if you look up how fast a buggy moves at max speed and also the wagon trains and that sort of thing and delivery vehicles, you find out that that's optimistic, but under good conditions could happen. Anyway, years later, this bunch of gold bars that disappeared and wagons that disappeared and people that disappeared, part of it was found, or not. Someone who was doing surveying of the county line between Elk County and Cameron County found 7 skeletons and described the area as being near the tributary of Hicks Run and the hollow of Bell Draft. And in the same area as Pinkerton Detective Agency found later on 3 gold bars and a partial gold bar. Some, when you look up the subject matter, will say that they went over a place called Thunder Mountain. Very, very dramatic sounding name. Doesn't show up in history books for the area that I can find, or as place names except for an equestrian trail in Elk State Forest, aka State Game Land 311. Now I want to point out something, very specific things I'm going to emphasize. There were surveyors doing a survey on a county line between 2 counties named Cameron and Elk. 7 skeletons were found, some gold was found, and there's an assertion they were near each other but may or not have been. And also, people on some web pages are asserting that the wagons were found or something like that, but they don't say where exactly it was. Every place I look up for this sells you on the idea that, we know exactly where it is, or we're just getting really close. This is a 150-year-old story. Where's the original telling of it, the written account, and why would anybody suddenly discover something 150 years late? And why is it in the news recently? The FBI, of course. Now, I'm going to ignore all that, and let's try something simple. If you're going south from here down through this pathway, if you're not aware of it, doing the walking and bicycling and driving pathways, if they all agree that this is the pathway, that's probably the pathway. So, okay, let's look at this. This is the driving pathway, and it shows it being a detour to Hicks Run camping area because I added that in. That's not really what the place is listed as, but that gives you an idea about it. But you may have noticed the pathways for driving and for, this is Lewiston, and there's that little curve there. There it is again. The pathways aren't much different. So if you use driving, walking, and bicycling, and they all kind of go in the same way, use whatever they all agree on, and that's probably the pathway that a horse and buggy would use. In fact, that's how you do it if you're trying to figure out where the Amish are going to be able to ride their wagons if they're going to do it. That's a joke about it. But anyway, let's go on. Now, this is a close-up of, again, the infamous unnamed city, St. Mary, that is right there, or whatever it's called now. And I decided to force it to go to Truman. This is the easiest pathway through a valley or flat area with the least amount of curve to it, because they said use a bicycle standard. Bicycle standard assumes you're only going to change your gears a certain number of times, just like walking. And I had it go to where the first place name that comes up when you type in any of those river or tributary names or hollow names. In fact, all of them match up with this area right in here somehow. Here and here show up. And that's why the pathway did that. And this pathway is what comes up if I drag it to Truman or anywhere else along here. It immediately snaps to here. If I don't do that, first of all, it tries to ignore the originating city that was last seen at, and then it starts making it go north, south, east, and west in dozens of different directions because, again, Google Maps fucks up. If I give it a GPS location over here, this all agrees, so I can now draw this map. I had to use a GPS location. Again, using the place name crashes the thing. This is the bicycling one. Now we're going to look at the one here that says driving. Now, it does change things a lot. You may have noticed that it does a much more harsh curve in here. Let me back that up. It goes here, and instead of just going there, it jumps. We're going to cross it to here, and goes onto this pathway here. Over here. Because there's a pathway. You can see kind of a little set of divots that it does actually have a pathway there. So you find that you can actually get there a little faster that way. And you could go down through here, and you might save some distance. So I decided to push it a little bit more. And instead of it going where it's expecting to go, and again, this is the one that's as close as possible. There's 2 locations 4 miles apart that it picks, depending on which one you drag it to. I decided to do something completely different and not aim for what the map system says and look for where I would hide something. Now I want to point out something suspicious here. If we use this curve that's again caused by the car thing, we end up having it do a jump over here, and then it goes here and wiggle waggles through here. These are river pathways that are reused for roads, okay? Okay. Now, if you didn't notice it, there's another little chunk here that's got a really short jump. Let's explore that. So when I did that, I ended up with, well, I got the city name wrong and did a bunch of the crap, but yeah, these 2 locations, if you go to the ridge here, are about 3,000 feet apart. This is over 1.5 miles apart. So let's do the map dynamically. The 2 locations that come up when you type in what you're supposed to look up, because the treasure hunters tell you what to type, is this valley here and this valley here, which are 4 miles apart. And they mention in the story a river or pathway here that's named Bell Draft, and this one over here that's called Hicks something. This is Hicks Valley, and this is Bell Draft Valley. That's their names. Now, they're closer together right here, but that's way too rough of a terrain. And here's a good jump here. Okay, so maybe it's over here. But again, the treasure hunters on their webpage just keep pointing to these 2 locations. But if you don't do that, if you think of what would I do if I was trying to hide stuff, I would hide stuff in this little pocket valley. Don't know if you notice this, but there's roads going through here and roads going here. They're still existent. But this valley and these little valleys here and canyons don't have many people in them. Look at how high the ridges are right here. That would be really imposing to get over. But what if you had to? Like, let's say you were surveying. Wouldn't you just pick a simpler pathway if you knew about it? If you see this and you're told to go south from there because it's an easy pathway, you're going to look at that and say they're full of shit. Now, this is a topographical map of Elk County, Pennsylvania. Now, I'm going to show you the 2 locations that are 4 miles apart. Here's the Bell Draft Valley right here. And then over here is Hicks Run Valley right here, or Hicks Hollow. Well, hollow is just an area that's called that. It doesn't have to be a feature or anything. Well, yeah, a hollow has a purpose. Hicks Hollow is a source of water for Hicks River, one of many. That's another one. There's another one way up there. But let's look over here. Here's Dents Run, and then finally we get to Bell Draft. Bell Draft starts here when you come to it, and it goes uphill, and it goes to Shafter Draft, which is where that road was built. And then up here it has another road that goes up to this position and kind of turns around. But, hey, wait a minute. Here's a big hollow space in the ground, a little valley, that is the source for the water for Bell Draft. This is the headwaters for Bell Draft. And again, on the map, it's only about 3,000 feet away from the west branch of a river that's also called Hicks Run. Hicks Run continues up here. And the closest location between each other, when I did the map check, shows this jump right here. And there's a little valley here. And there's a little saddle here leading to this. It's called Dents run here. There's a bunch of them. This entire river system, watershed, is accessible from here. But because of these very imposing hills here, practically cliffs, this 400-foot deep by 1 mile across little valley didn't even get a name. And you may have noticed something suspicious about this little valley. It is at the Cameron County and Elk County line between the counties, exactly where a surveyor would have to be. The surveyors went out here, and they have to go wherever they have to climb whatever they got to go do the survey work. So someone sits down here or on this ridge and says, make your way over there. They're hoofing it. So he goes up here, lines up on top of here, sets a mile marker or a GPS marker, as we call it these days, goes through here, and uses the least path of resistance and ends up on this little jump point, and they hopscotch. So the next place that you would be if you were marking that county line would be on this ridge. And the other guy would be on this ridge, and you'd be line of sighting it to be able to figure out this next point. That's how you do it. I helped somebody do that. That means they would be staring into this little teeny valley. It is a headwater, and it has no name. Don't know if you noticed this, but when I do Bell Draft Valley, that's what this is, it points way the hell down here. That's called a valley. That's maybe 800 feet across. Meanwhile, there's an actual valley associated with Bell Draft Creek or road or river or whatever right up here that has no name to it. And it's on the county line right where they said they found bodies, gold, and other shit. I also want to point out, if you were doing this for a hideout, having a spotter on each of these ridges would work great. You could put a camp right here, nobody would know about it. It's also sheltered from bad weather. And if you needed to escape it for any reason, this is a kind of a steep incline, but you could get up here and then just slide down this if you had to. These ridges make this into practically a castle. And also, if you decide, okay, they were doing the county line, but they came from the other end. Okay, well, that would mean they have to come up here and still run over this valley. This valley only intersects there. And that's the only place that river, that stream, Bell Draft, actually comes near the damn county line. That means that any reference to it on your gold digger websites should point to that little valley that starts at 2,200 feet and goes down to 1,800 feet at the base here. That's where the water comes from one of the named locations. So did you find that on any of the websites that are supposed to help you find the gold? Or not? 1863, Wheeling, West Virginia, a Union wagon train loaded up 1.3 short tons of 26 Civil War 50-pound gold bars, starting a 380-mile route going northeast through Pennsylvania to Ridgeway, then was last seen at St. Mary's on their way heading southeast to Harrisburg, but they never arrived. A surveying company on that county line found 7 skeletons, and the hollow of Bell Draft near the tributary of the Hicks Run. That's the only place that matches that kind of description properly for a bunch of surveyors at that point. Hicks Hollow Valley is 4 miles away from Bell Draft Valley, so that can't be it. And this river runs 4.4 miles up to that little area up there. It's a little 1 mile across mini valley. It's a headwater for the Bell Draft. The Pinkerton Detective Agency said they went to the same location, but nobody ever specified where it is, and found gold bars there. And also, some have said that they found other stuff there to prove it was a location. But again, it doesn't point to any place where any of that would have actually worked. And again, it's still unnamed because nobody goes there. It's hidden from people less than 3,000 feet away in a town nearby. They don't even know it's there. The only Thunder Mountain you find is the name of some trails in a state forest or in game lands designated 311. This treasure may not be in Dents Run, Bensett, Elk County, or any other part of Pennsylvania for a simple reason. They were in the process of chopping it up in the 1900s. Period, full stop, it's gone. Stop looking for it. But if you're going to look for it in the correct spot. Anyway, that's all there is today. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that. GPS location in the description. Good day.